Dan and Kelly Morgan here, and we just want to say how excited we are to officially be able to launch Morgan Ministries. Now, if you haven't heard about it, what I'd invite you to do is to hop on over to our Instagram page, follow us. You can find us at Morgan Ministries. There's a short social media video, and they'll give you a little bit more information about who we are and about this ministry. So the first thing, though, that we want you to do is we want you to get to know who we are. That's the heart behind Morgan Ministries. And so that's what we desire to do for this video. And like any good story, we got to set the stage. We got to set the stage and let you know who we are before the Lord totally intersected our path.
So Kelly, what was going on in your life before we met? What did that look like?
So I was single. I was going into the big year of 40 and had never been married before, was serving the Lord in the Mississippi Delta, was a missionary, and really was content and thought that that was where I would spend the rest of my life. And man, little did I know the transitions that would begin to transpire in my year of 40, because that ultimately brought me into January of 2020 with a new job. I ended up taking me to a new city, and then in the middle of all that, I was buying a new house. And so there were so many big things to start off this year of 40 for me that felt really new and really big decisions. And so going into 2020, it was all things new.
I was experiencing a few new things myself. It was one of the hardest seasons of my life, as I had just come out of a divorce, and everything literally was new when it came to, I had a new house, a new dog, a totally new role. And I had just confirmed in my heart and in my mind that I wanted nothing other than to just simply put my head down and work simply for the next 2 years. I wasn't interested in a relationship. I thought, you know what, I'll put my head down, work hard, and in about 2 years I'm going to kind of pop up and see what's going on. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything changes.
Yep, that's right. Everything got started with a Facebook request. And yes, this girl, was the one that got us started. Like any random day when we're social media surfing, that's what I found myself doing on this random day, which you heard me say earlier. Yeah, I had been praying and had the desires of my heart for a family and for a partner and for a spouse. That was something that was just a part of my prayer life. But on this random day, scrolling on Facebook, little did I know what would happen when this blue-eyed, blonde-haired man's profile popped up on my screen. And as silly as it may sound, this was different. And I just sensed that this was something that I needed to take a next step on, and that the Lord could be in this, just like He's led me in other directions before. And so I stalked him like any smart girl is gonna do. You're gonna go on social media, check some things out, prayed, held my breath, and sent the request.
Which, when I received it, you know what, I was a little surprised because I'm not a big social media guy, and here was, I had this really attractive woman wanting to send me a friend request, and I was, again, just with everything I had been through, I was leery of accepting anything. My page was like private. I was like, man, I don't even know how she found me, and I'm like, what's going on here? And so I just ignored it at first, but then I went back And as anytime I would open up Facebook, there was her picture for the next few days. It was like right there saying friend request, accept or deny. And I was like, so I finally just went on her page and I was like, man, this is crazy, because it's like somebody knows me and knows how to get my attention. And I mean, there was one thing after another. I could see her desire to serve the Lord. I could see ministry related things. I could see different things with their family. And it was very intriguing, to which I was still a little nervous, but then I saw all the mutual friends we had. So I went ahead and I finally accepted. But after I accepted, I kept finding myself going back to her page. And I was like, man, this is too good to be true. And honestly, there was something in me that I was like, man, I'd really like to talk to her. But I was scared. I was nervous, not gonna lie. And so I wound up, when I saw the mutual friends we had, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna talk to them first. And look, if they tell me anything that raises a red flag just a little, man, I'll drop it like a hot potato. But then I talked to my buddy Ted, and it was amazing how the Lord used him, because literally when I called him, as we began talking, just catching up on small talk, I finally just said, look, Ted, this is why I called you. What's the deal with this girl named Kelly Sale? And he was like, oh my gosh, Dan, you are not going to believe it. Are you sitting down right now? He said, literally, just 2 minutes ago, my wife and I, Carrie, are driving down the road in this truck, and said, we were just talking about you, and said, you know what? You know who he would make a good match with? And he said, Kelly Sale. It was amazing how God used Ted to confirm things. And I knew I'd heard enough now. I wanted to ask her out, but I was still a little scared. So as I began to follow up on just a few more mutual friends, I had one more in particular who was actually her small group leader, who worked with me at FCA. And she told me, Dan, Kelly's an awesome girl. She went on, but she wound up telling me, she was like, Dan, you need to slide her a DM.
What?
And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, I don't ask somebody out over a DM. I was like, man, that's crazy. You gotta talk to them face to face. But after a little more conversation, before it was said and done, I agreed to slide her a DM, which I did. But I chickened out and talked more about ministry than I did about what I really wanted, and that was to ask her out. And after going back and forth over a day, I finally decided, you know what, just man up and send her another one. So I sent her another one, apologizing for just wanting the ministry out, because what I really wanted to do was I wanted to ask if you'd go out with me for coffee.
So he did. Asked me out on our first date. So the best way that I would describe our dating season for me is that it felt like a dance between faith and fear. As I'm walking into our first date at Proud Larry's, I'm curious, I'm interested, I'm intrigued, just enough to get me there. Because I'd seen the relationship that I'd had with the Lord, the prayers that I had prayed, and I saw him doing some things that I had not experienced before. And I knew just maybe God was up to something. And I didn't want to miss it. So here I am, first date, second date, finding out more and more about this Dan Morgan. And as I'm getting to know him and I'm seeing his character and his integrity and his kindness, his gentleness, his patience, the way that he serves others, his love for ministry, and even just the way that he'd laugh, and we just enjoyed being with each other, the way that he reminded me of a Mississippi Delta boy, even though he's from South Carolina. And so we're in this dating process, and my faith is continually being built as I'm learning more about who he is. And then at the very same time, here comes fear knocking at the door of my heart. Because this man that I'm getting to know, this gift that could be from God, just might be packaged in a way that is different than Kelly thought. Because I had my plans. And this might be different. And so the questions, the doubt, all the things would begin to well up inside of my mind, inside of my heart. the what ifs. What if life looks different in this area? What if I have to give this up? What about this? What about that? So it almost became like I was an investigator in our relationship. And man, let me tell you, he would tell you this day, I would ask him all the questions. I wanted to find out all the things. And so there was this dance in this process of faith and fear. And yet along the way, and in the way that only God could do, it was his goodness that gave me these anchors. They gave me these anchors to keep me moving forward in this relationship, because relationships are risky, y'all. And so he would give me these anchors, one being just Dan's presence, just the peace, the comfort that I experienced, the safety that I would want in a man that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I was beginning to find that in him. And I was experiencing that. And it wasn't just a feeling, it was just a presence. The other anchor was what I would find in my little pink journal. All those questions, all those doubts, all those fears, all the things that I wanted to know about this man, I was hashing it out, me and God, every day in this little pink journal. And every week, with every date, with every conversation, with every time that we were together, those fears were beginning to be answered as God was answering those requests, as I was walking it out with him, and I was going and turning to him first. And then there was this other final anchor, and it was my people. It was the people I had in my life, my best friend, my mentor. It was my parents. It was our family that were a part of this journey of dating, this process, and they were able to encourage me. They were able to remind me of the promises of God. They were able to speak truth to me. They were able to confirm the things that God was telling me and that he was showing them. And it was all the pieces that were a part of this process that was building my faith and that would keep me moving forward in this relationship and ultimately to the next step.
So, dating during a national global pandemic, what was a curse for many was a blessing for us. With movies being shut down, with so many public places being shut down, there wasn't very many places to go. So we got to spend quality time with one another. We got to cook together. We went on walks in the park together. It was one of those things where we got to enjoy some shared interest and at the same time spend that time getting to know one another. Whereas if you're just going out to movies or some of these different things, oftentimes you just spend more time sitting there. But we wound up being able to talk and communicate and ask questions. And as it went on, my mind was continually blown in the sense that it was cool to get to know more about Kelly. I actually wound up telling her this at one of our dates. I asked if I could pinch her for a second. I wanted to make sure she was real, because honestly, I didn't know that God still made women like this. Again, it was almost as if someone had read my mind and knew what I was thinking, the answers to the questions I would ask. It blew my mind. And it scared me a little bit, because I knew very early, although I'd planned just to put my head down for 2 years and maybe pop up in 2 years, I knew that if God would allow me, I knew this was the woman that I would marry. And so my love began to grow faster than I could have ever imagined. I didn't think I'd tell a woman I loved her again. I won't say ever, but I knew it was going to be a long time, and yet here it is. I found those words coming up in my heart and in my mind, and as I tried to push them down, I realized what God was doing. And in doing so, just before Kelly left to go on a mission trip to Mexico, I wrote her a series of letters, one for each day, and I gave her a different scripture with each day. And I thought it was clever, evidently. She was able to figure it out. But the first letter of each scripture spelled out over her time while she was away, spelled out, I love you. And so it wasn't exactly sliding a DM, but it was a neat way, I thought, to send her the message. And you know, that was a hard step for me. And then the response made it even more interesting.